All right, so we're back with art analysis, and today you're going to learn about step number 3, which is called interpretation. So remember, there are 4 steps in the art analysis process that I'm teaching you, and we first started out with description, which is the most basic step. It's objective. You're just describing what you see in the artwork, whether it's 2D, 3D, or a photograph, or whatever type of artwork it is. You're just describing what you see, and you're giving information that's been provided about the artwork. The second step is analysis, and that is where you're analyzing how the artist used specific elements and principles of design. You're not having to talk about every single element and every single principle. I usually ask my students just to focus on ones that seem the most dominant because those are the ones that you can easily talk about. And with that step, you're just looking to see what makes up the artwork, not the actual medium that's made out of, but just what did the artist do to create the illusions that you see in the artwork. So the third step we're looking at now is interpretation. And this is where you can actually start using your own opinions. I would say description and interpretation are probably the easiest steps. Analysis and judgment take a little bit more work. So what have you done so far in art analysis? So you learned to describe and analyze the artwork. Again, you're not analyzing everything about the artwork when you do step number 2, you're just looking at the elements and principles. But when you describe and analyze the artwork, you're uncovering clues about the meaning of the artwork. And yes, sometimes when the artwork has a title, the title can give you a hint about the possible meaning or purpose of the artwork. Not all artworks are titled, though. Sometimes artworks do not have a very descriptive title, so don't just assume you can just use the title to help you out. And interpretation is about figuring out what the artwork could possibly mean. You do not have the artist there to tell you what to do, and the artist had an intention when they made the artwork. Like, you're trying to figure out what was their intent, right? You can't get into their head, but what were they trying to do with their artwork? So we're going to look at ways that the purposes that artwork can have. So art, visual, um, drawing, painting, sculpture, photos, ceramic, all those visual arts, they have many purposes. And one of them is to be expressive. Usually you're expressing some sort of emotion or a feeling or maybe even a statement. So this artwork here, this is a drawing and looks like it's also digitally manipulated. It's definitely expressive due to the use of lines and color and even repetition of certain shapes. This sculpture is definitely very expressive with the use of the butterflies lifting up this girl. She's looked like she's in the middle of moving, right? She's flying up. There's a sense of motion. And artwork can also be narrative. And narrative is where you're describing and illustrating an experience. It could be a story that's recognizable, or it could be a personal story told by the artist. Artwork can be functional. This is something we frequently touch upon when we work with ceramics because a lot of students want to create things that are functional, right? A cup, a mug, a vessel, a box. So the artwork, it's functional, it could have a practical purpose, and it just has some sort of use. So this picture here is a bookshelf, though it is also very expressive with the curves, the spiral, but it is also functional because it can function as a shelf. This lighting here, this lamp, right, it looks like it has the design mimics palm trees. So, but it's also functional. It's meant to emit light. Artwork can also be ceremonial or ritual, as in it's celebrating something, whether it's celebrating the life of somebody or celebrating an event. Art can also be decorative, and so the purpose of that is to decorate or beautify an area. We have this topiary here made out of grass or shrubs, and they've been cut and trimmed in a certain way to look like elephants. artwork can be persuasive, right? Think of advertisements. Think of, when you see an advertisement for makeup or a shoe company or furniture, right? They're trying to sell you something. Artwork can also be a form of propaganda. That's persuasive art. So we have the Uncle Sam Wants You uh, painting here, and then we have this artwork created by a small child, but it's sending the message that people need water, right? That's the point of the poster. It's persuasive. And then artwork can also be formalist. That's the purpose. It's formalist in that when we look at it, we're really looking at the arrangement of the elements and principles of design. Sometimes we can see this in abstract artwork. Formalism is actually a type of aesthetic theory. It's a way to talk about artwork. So for example, this artwork here on the screen, it looks like it's a series of orange spheres. I cannot tell if they're baseballs or if they're supposed to be like little planets, but we can talk about the position and the color and the sense of visual movement, that it looks like they're floating up or moving downward. And another purpose with art is it's reflecting the world, where the art imitates nature, or nature intimidates art. So what happens during step number 3? Remember, interpretation is based on your opinion, but it is an educated guess. You do have to make an assumption here. But you don't just say what you think the artwork is about. You need to back this up with what you see, which you found out in the description, and how the artwork is organized, which is what you figured out in step number 2. So this is when you have to go back to step number 1 and step number 2 to help support your ideas for step number 3. Basically, what's going on, right? What's the purpose? What is the artist trying to say here? And like, why interpret, right? Why interpret the artwork? Well, it helps you understand the artwork and the subject content, right? It helps you understand what it's actually about. So again, how to interpret? Well, first you create a hypothesis. This is your opinion. This is what you assume the artwork is about, right? I assume this painting is about autumn, right? The season of autumn. But now I have to defend that hypothesis, right? I have to defend that opinion. And I do that by using evidence from the description and analysis of the artwork. This is when it starts to build on each other, right? What you see and what the artist did. So, for example, this painting is about the season of autumn. I believe this because the painting has lots of trees. The trees leaves are colored red and orange. I see a lot of leaves also on the ground in the painting. So I'm assuming the landscape is a scene from autumn because this is what trees would typically look like during the season of autumn. That is a very plain explanation, but I gave my opinion and I explained what I saw and what the artist did. So what's a good interpretation paragraph, right? You're going to be writing a paragraph eventually for your interpretation. So it has a detailed explanation. You are very detailed in what you are talking about. You use the elements and principles of design vocabulary to back up what you're seeing. You're using the evidence that you can see in the artwork. You're not going to make up what's there, okay? We're not talking about an imaginary artwork. We're going to use the evidence that we can see in the sculpture, the painting, what have you. It's using your own opinion. Please don't hop around on the internet looking for someone else's opinion. I'm not asking for other people's opinions. I'm asking for yours. Use complete sentences. That's just a sign of good writing and being thoughtful with your sentences. So use complete sentences. Here's an example of a paragraph for interpretation. This is a painting. This is a print called The Great Wave by Hokusai. So this is how I started my paragraph for interpretation, right? Imagine I've already done my description and I've already done my analysis paragraphs. So I think the great wave means that even though the ocean can appear calm, it's actually very powerful and that we cannot control nature. In the artwork, the wave appears large and dangerous because small boats are placed where the wave will eventually crash down. Now, this is not a tsunami, just so you know. It's a big ocean wave. It's called the Great Wave. And adding to this, the directional movement is used to draw your eye back and forth across the image, which makes it appear busy and powerful. The only stable object is Mount Fuji which is placed in the background. So I've already noted, hey, the wave looks really large and dangerous. Notice we've got these boats. Something's going to fall down on it. It's got a sense of directional movement. Adding some more, there is a sense of space because of the layering of the ocean waves. The artist used muted colors to create a sense of calm, even though the wave has sharp, pointed lines. Boom, I just noted 3 elements of design in that. Sense of space, as in depth, muted colors, right? These colors are not particularly bright. And sharp pointed lines. I'm being descriptive here about how these lines, I could even add and say that these lines look like little fingers reaching out, right? It looks like something's reaching out from the ocean wave.